Well, thank you everybody for joining. Good to see everybody again. So this is the second session of First Degree Reiki. We had last week's recording. Fortunately tonight, hopefully we won't be blowing up because we've managed to get the system up and running, and I'm at Helen's, who's in my bubble. For anybody that's listening to this recording that's outside of the UK, we're actually back in lockdown. So I'm here with my only person that I'm allowed to see, Helen, at her house. so hopefully we won't have any problems like we did last week. So I just wanted to do a quick run through of what we're going to be doing, talking about this week. So first of all, we will talk about how we set our intent. So moving on from the lessons that we had last week, the teaching that we had last week, we touched a little bit on intent. So I want to go a little bit deeper into that this week. And I also want to talk at the front end about what people often call healing crisis. Now, I prefer it to call a challenge, because if you understand the meaning behind it, if you have understanding around the whole process of a healing crisis, then it's no longer seen as something that's mysterious or potentially awful. It's just a challenge. And you know, with any type of change, which is what we're talking about, there's going to be a challenge to it. So we'll go into talking about that, and also we'll go into a detail about the chakra system as well, and how that's linked in with the endocrine system, the meridian system, and also the organs. We'll talk about the benefits of Reiki. So I will give you experiences from my own Reiki practice as a practitioner for many years, people's different stories about how they've experienced change, because it's not always obvious at the outset is Reiki. So I'll tell you some more of the subtle experiences that I've seen in my clients. And then Helen is going to beautifully demonstrate a self Reiki practice. So I thought we could all join in at that point as well. And it's easier, I think, if you actually go through the motions. It's easier to integrate the learning if you're actually there doing that process. So we'll be talking through each of the hand positions, and if we can all get involved in that and maybe talk about what we've experienced at the end of this, if we've got time. I am hoping to get this, get us all away sort of within an hour and 15 minutes. And then talk about client feedbacks as well, and their experiences of what they feel during the treatment. So looking at setting your intent, when we work with clients or with friends or with family, it's always really important to work with somebody in the knowledge that they have their own innate healing system. And that what we're doing as a practitioner is we're channeling energy. We are simply the channel. So we're not healing anybody. This isn't a place where we're going to turn ourselves into healers. We are just here as a channel to help facilitate a process. And we're not into fixing anybody. You know, everybody has their own rate at which they heal, their own willingness at which they heal. If somebody really isn't willing to heal, they're not going to. So they can put their own blocks in. It doesn't matter how much we open up to Reiki. It doesn't matter how much experience we have, how much as a practitioner our filters are all cleared through. If somebody doesn't want to receive Reiki, they're not going to. It does penetrate on some level, but if somebody really is determined not to receive healing, then they won't. So it is a contract between your client or the person that you're working with, depending on which capacity you're working at, and the universe, the universal energy. So when we're looking at setting an intent, a client or somebody, a friend or a family or even yourself might be thinking about what is it that you want to put into your Reiki practice. Because Reiki has its own intelligence, it will find its own place that it needs to penetrate and get to. It will get to the core of the problem. But also there's nothing to stop you from encouraging it along with an intent. So generally my experiences of intents are when I've had several triggers throughout the week. Mine seem to come in threes, and there'll generally be something that's happened 3 times with an underlying theme. So it could be somebody's really disrespected me, or I've set up a deal with somebody, like a bargain, a contract with somebody, and 3 different people have broken it. So that will be the theme that's going on, and it might happen in all different ways, but the general underlying theme will be for me to put my intent into working with something to help me see what it is that I'm missing. So when we're looking at the intent as well, it's not to put anybody and yourself into a poor me, I'm broken. Nobody's broken. We're all in a state of flux. We're all in a state of change, and everybody's coming to their practice at different times based on quite often planetary alignments, our own conditioning, our own willingness. So there's many different factors as to why we actually come to a place of wanting to help ourselves. And Reiki is very much about self-help. It's about self-empowerment. So it's always important to remember that you are already in a place of abundance. You're just asking for little tweaks, little ideas, little suggestions from the universe as how to improve and develop your wellness. So this can be in the form of wealth. It can be in the form of your health, your relationships, your spiritual connection, so your connection with yourself, things that you're missing, things that you're trying to avoid. So Reiki is extremely powerful at tracking down where things can be improved, corrected, changed slightly in order to make your life much easier, because that is basically what we're looking at, trying to find a practice that is quite quick at pinpointing problems and helping you relieve those problems. So it's kind of understanding where you're coming from with your intent. So when we're setting it, just be absolutely clear that we're not fixing anybody. We're making sure that we know that this person or ourselves have that innate ability to heal ourselves. What Reiki is doing is it's just trying to find that little spark within us that you can grasp hold of and then start to develop and change with it. So when we start on this healing journey, this healing process, whatever it is that you're coming to heal, as I say, it's about a challenge. And often what we can find is that when we're working with the physical body, when we're working with the emotions, when we're working with our thoughts and our behaviors on a mental level, that things can change quite quickly with Reiki. And quite often, another part of us hasn't caught up. When we're looking at our aura, we're built up with many different bodies. And even though the majority of us just see the physical body, beyond the physical, we've got the emotional body, then we have the mental body, and the final body that we work with, which is surrounding the whole of the aura, is called the subtle body. And this is where we hold all of our consciousness. This is where we hold the template for what we're creating in our lives. So when we get to a point of feeling physical pain, which is generally where you get to this point, or especially if I'm working with clients, they're generally coming to me with a physical manifestation. What's happened is in our outer subtle body, we've missed some key clues. We've missed something that's saying, hang on a minute, you're out of alignment with your identity. You're not working to what your energy is here to do. We all have a plan to create something in our lives, and that's what's held in our template, what's held in our subtle body. And if we miss what we're supposed to be doing, then that will start penetrating down into our thoughts and our behaviors. So this then now comes down into the mental body. And quite often this is where we start to take on other people's thoughts, take on other people's behaviors. We start to mirror what they're doing. And this starts to form part of our conditioning. So it first of all takes us away from who we're supposed to be on a mental level. Then if we don't resolve that, it then starts getting down into our emotions. So when we start to take on other people's thoughts and behaviors that aren't ours, then we will start to feel that are in our emotions. And when you start to work with a system called human design, each of us have different ways that our emotions will play out when we're not in alignment. So this can be anger, it can be frustration, it can be bitterness. So depending on what your human design is, what your energy pattern is, will determine how this predominantly plays out in your emotions. So then if we then even ignore our emotions, this is when it starts to penetrate into our physical body. So this is where we start with physical ailments. And when we go onto the chakra system, I'll actually talk you through what the main problems are physically that manifest when we're connecting with each of the chakras. So it gives us, the body gives us many, many clues in the form of emotions, thought, belief systems, behaviors, physical ailments. So when we're out of alignment, it's our whole body telling us, hang on a minute, just pay attention to what it is that you're supposed to be doing. And Reiki actually finds that point where you have come off track and you're no longer following your energy pattern. And it subtly attempts to move you back into alignment with yourself. So you will start to feel sensations and corrections in your physical body. So often what you might find is that you become more upright, you become more aligned in your physical body. And sometimes with that correction, if you imagine, if you've been stooped for a long time, especially if you're protecting your heart energy, you might find that your shoulders are raised on your stooped. Your muscles have got to a point where they're actually developed, around all of that. So when suddenly you start to align and you bring your spine into alignment, all of those muscles have to readapt. So there can be a feeling of physical pain in the body where your body is physically starting to realign. Same with the emotions as well. Often when you are in a situation that really isn't suited to your personality or to your energy, and people are really pushing your buttons and really trying to, make you be somebody who you're not, again, your emotions can flare up. So once you're aware that by having Reiki, sometimes you're going to come, while you're coming into alignment, you might have these emotional flare-ups. But if you're aware that you're going to have them and you have a strategy of how you can deal with those, which you can go into, there's a course actually that I run on the website, and you can actually find out by getting your astrological chart as to which is your human design. In there, it will give you really specific information about one of the 5 energy sources that you would be based on the point that you were actually born. But that will give you really good clues, and it'll give you strategies so that when you are out of an alignment, and say, for example, if you experience bitterness, I'm a projector, and when we're out of alignment, our doorbells go off, as in, I become really quite bitter, and that's because I'm tired. So I know that my strategy when I'm out of alignment is to sleep, it's to rest, it's just to do nothing, veg out. And by knowing that, by knowing your energy type, it's so important, because when people called me lazy in the past, I would go, oh yeah, I've got to get up, I've got to start doing things. But actually that made me more bitter. And by knowing my strategy, by knowing my energy type, I now go, well, actually that's great for you. You can carry on going and going and going, but I can't. And that's just part of me, and I can't help that, and I can't change that. And actually I don't want to change that, because that's me. So by learning who I am, I can now manage these in a much better way. So I would certainly say have a look at the website in conjunction with this to find out what your strategy is for dealing with all of this. And then that makes any type of healing challenge much more manageable, because you're already pre-armed with a strategy as to when these things start triggering in you. So that's looking at the healing crisis. Now I'm just going to share my screen with you for this next one, because we're just going to move on to the chakra system. And then once I've talked to you a little bit about the chakra system, we'll actually go into an exercise. I'll use, Helen's going to be my demo model for me. and I would suggest that, you know, we all do this together. So let me just see how I can share my screen a second. There we go. So you've probably seen this quite frequently. This is the chakra system. And when we're looking at energy in and around our bodies, we're looking at 72,000 energetic pathways. And in the Sanskrit texts, they're called nadis. So these are the pathways that we use. Quite often they're called meridians. You've probably heard them in Chinese medicines as meridians. And at certain points, these meridians cross, these energy pathways cross. And there's 114 points that they actually cross. And when they meet, they create like a wheel, a disc, and that's what chakra means. It's a disc. And at these points, this is where we actually receive energy on a subtle level. It's where we process information on an energetic level, and it's how we send it out as well. So if you can ever imagine a time where you've walked into a room and it's felt quite prickly or spiky or really embracing, depending on who's in that room, this is your chakra system at work. So when we feel something is really positive, our chakras are quite happy to open up, and we're drawn towards whatever it is that's occurring, or the energy that's within the room. But on the flip side, if it's something negative, if somebody's negative in the room or there's a negative situation going on, our chakras tend to shut down and they want to recoil. So you find that your energy system on a second to second basis, nanoseconds, is constantly in flux. It's opening, it's closing, it's taking this information in, it's processing, it's sending it out. And that's part of the energy system. Now, at the points that they meet, these energy pathways meet 21 times. This is where the 7 main chakras within our body and above our head, the crown chakra, are the ones that we tend to work with, especially in the Western world. The others are where 14 pathways cross. So they're the minor chakras, but in Reiki, we work with the palm chakras, and we also work with chakras on the knees, backs of the knees, and tops and bottom of the feet. So these can be felt through the hands. So when we start calling in Reiki, one of the sensations that you can often get in the palm of your hand is your hand heating up or feeling very cold. So that's an indication, once you start working with Reiki energy more and more and you get to experience it more, you will start to feel these sensations. So when we're looking at the chakras, they have lots of associations and lots of meanings and clues to go with them. So they can be associated with colour. Each of the chakras has a different colour, and that's based on vibration. So with that vibration, it also has its own sound as well. So when we're working with mantras in particular, you have 64 pathways that run across the root of your mouth. So the meridians actually cross across the roof of the mouth. So when we're doing mantras, we're stimulating all of these energetic pathways. So they're associated with colour, they're associated with sound. They each have a sense as well. They also have an age range. And I'll start going through these. When I start working on Helen, I'll talk you through the different age ranges. They also have a physical alignment. They also have physical ailments that are connected to them. And they have a representation or a connection with an organ that's in the body. Each of them also have a connection with the endocrine system. And that's on the emotional level. And then on the mental level, we're looking at various behaviours. So this is where we can look at a particular chakra and we can see multiple behaviors that are connected to the chakra. So if you imagine wanting to actually pinpoint a problem, say for example you've got a cooker in your house. If you see this as an electrical system, if you've got a cooker in your house that's broken, the first thing that you will do is you'll disconnect it from the system to start working on it. Now the chakras work very much in the same way. What we can do through various practices is we can isolate, examine, and then reconnect. So this works, it's a wonderful tool actually. Once you start working with the chakras and get into a deeper understanding, then it's quite easily done to see how you can isolate and start to work with various physical ailments, various emotional states, various behaviors, and also addictions as well. You often find that the lower chakras, the first three chakras, are often out of alignment when we have addictions. So there are 64 states of love, plus their shadow elements as well, that we can find connected with the chakras. And there's so much more. There's planetary alignments, there's ruling planets, there's ruling horoscope signs, there's whole times, there's whole ages. Quite often you find that they work within 200 or 300 year cycles. So we're just coming out of the cycle of the solar plexus, which first came about in 1781. So we're moving from the solar plexus energy to the time as a collective into the heart energy, which again will be about another 300 years. So there's lots of things that we can associate with the chakras. And when you can see these connections and these little clues that we have in our body, in our behavior, in our emotions, then we can pinpoint where we're out of alignment and start isolating and working on those areas. So I think probably the next thing that we'll do is do a little bit of our self Reiki. So give me the thumbs up if you're ready for doing a little bit of Reiki on yourself. All good? Cool. Okay, so we'll get Helen set up.
All right. I'll go on that one, it's squeak.
Oh yeah, it doesn't. You'll have to lift it actually. We've got a spinny chair here. We've been having great fun playing around with this chair. So what we'll do to start with, can everybody hear me? Yeah, good. Okay. So what we'll do is actually Reiki's coming through. I'm getting warm, so I'm gonna unpeel. Sorry. So what we'll do is if we start off with the incantation. So if you place your hands in Namaste, you start to learn a lot more about this when we get into the second degree of Reiki. So this is a gesture that's saying the whole of me greets the whole of you. So as I'm going to be working with Helen, we'll start off with this. So all we're asking is for Reiki to come into us and through us, and for the Reiki masters, past, present, and future, in particular Dr. Yushui, Dr. Hayashi, and Madame Takata, to step close and help us with this treatment today. So as you ask for Reiki to come in through your body and channel through you, you may start to feel sensation of heat, cold. And what I will do as well is I'll enhance the energy for you so that you can fully experience this for you. So when we're working with the techniques, we're going to use cupped hands. So, and what I would say is all of the hand positions are going to be exactly the same, whether this is a self-Reiki with the first degree, whether it's self-Reiki with the second degree or master. The only difference is with the first degree, it gives you the ability to work on a physical level. So we're only working with this physical body. So we'll work on all the physical elements. I will talk to you about the emotional and the mental states as well as we're going through, but from a purpose of this particular training, this is first degree, so this is just basically on a physical level, but I do know that we've got other Reiki practitioners, and Helen's also a master as well, that will be working on an emotional and also a mental level as well, and a karmic if you're a master. So this is very much on a physical level to start with. It takes roughly about 45 minutes, so we won't have time to do a full treatment today. This is for demonstration purposes only, just to give you a feel of how the energy flows through you and to see the positions as you're going through, and give you a practice on yourself. But when you actually attune to the second degree, you get sacred symbols. So your second degree and also your master, it speeds up the process much quicker. So you'll generally find that a treatment can take anywhere between, mine are about 5 minutes if I'm working on myself now, anywhere between 5 minutes and 20 minutes. And the more that you get into this flow, I will show you a set sequence to make it easier for you to learn, but eventually you'll find that Reiki will guide you to wherever you need to go anyway. So if you put that intent into your practice, that the energy will guide you. And what I mean by that is people experience it in different ways. I experience it as though my hand is being drawn down, as though it's a magnet. So I will scan the body and just see if there's anywhere in the body that's really attracting my attention with my hand. And it's almost as though I get pulled to that spot. Other people feel heat, other people feel cold. The more that you work with this, you'll actually get to experience your own way of working. So for me, as you can probably see, my cheeks are starting to go red. That's my indication, and my neck generally goes red when I've got Reiki coming through. So you'll all find your own different way of experiencing it. So what we'll do is we'll start. Helen's going to actually do the demonstration. I'll just talk you through what we're doing. So Helen's going to cup her hands, and she's going to start with her crown chakra. Now, when you're first starting with the first degree, what I would say is, because it's such a while that you'll be doing this, such 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes for each of the hand positions, what you may want to do is have a cushion handy so that you can prop that on your knee, have a few piles, and sometimes you can hold your head and crouch down with a few cushions underneath supporting you. Or you may want to raise your knees and put your hands in that position. So if everybody wants to join in and have a go at this. So we're working on the crown. So this works on a physical level, it works with the brain. And quite often what you find is people who have Parkinson's or have had a stroke can quite often benefit from this. The only conditions that we can't work with are if you have diabetes. You can work with Reiki if you've had diabetes, but it's really, really important that you take daily bloods and make sure that you're on top of your insulin. So you have to really closely monitor. So unless you're willing to do that, please don't do Reiki. And also if you have a pacemaker as well, they're the only 2 times that we can't actually work with Reiki. So the next position is on the third eye. So this is the brow. And this is working with a band across here. So it's working with the eyes, it's working with the sinuses on a physical level. And it can often be associated with insomnia. So when we're out of balance in the crown chakra, the third eye, the solar plexus, and also the base chakra, that can be the main issue around insomnia. The crown and the base chakra also together combined, if there's an imbalance in those two, can quite often create behavioural problems such as OCD. The crown is involved with conditions such as schizophrenia and bipolar. And the third eye can be connected to dyslexia as well. Dyslexia is the solar plexus and the third eye. So the next position is around the throat. So you put the heels of your palm together and wrap around. And this is working with conditions such as tinnitus, any problems with your teeth, with your jaw, any problems with your speech. So quite often when there's an imbalance here, you can experience Tourette's, stuttering. On a behavioural level, quite often when it's out of balance, if there's too much energy coming through the throat chakra, this is where we often find people who twist. We call them twisters, where basically they will have an idea of themselves but turn that around and put that onto you. So it's kind of like a manipulation. It's the home of the pathological liar as well, is the throat chakra. But when it's in balance, it's an extremely powerful communicator. And it's also universalized energy as well. This is about expressing what you've learned. It's taking what you are sharing out into the universe. So the next position is the heart chakra. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Helen's demonstrating straight across. There's another one that you can demonstrate, which is a T. Or you can hold two hands above here so that it gets the high heart as well as the physical heart. And this works with the thymus. So when we start linking in with the endocrine system, this is the thymus. When we're working with the throat, it's the thyroid, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland in the crown. It's the pancreas for the solar plexus. It's the sex organs for the sacral, and for the base, it's the adrenals. And on a physical level, this affects the shoulders, it affects all down the arms. So if you have an imbalance, you might find that you get tennis elbow, carpal tunnel, problems with wrists, fingers, and also the airways are affected here as well. So things such as asthma, bronchitis, breathing problems, and also heart problems as well. So then moving down to the solar plexus, this is a place where there's lots of major organs. So we have the pancreas here, we have the stomach here, we have the adrenals, the physical adrenals that we're talking about are here, and also the kidneys around the back. We'll work on the front chakras first, and then we'll go and look at the back ones. But at the front, like I say, you've got your stomach, your liver, the pancreas. So quite a lot of energy is generated from here. This is also connected to your personality, your willpower, and how you go out into the world and take your action forward. And when we're starting to get into the realm of addictions, which are the three main lower ones, this is quite often where we can have addictions to smoking and also to major hard drugs, alcohol as well, quite often. So when we have an imbalance in the base chakra and also the solar plexus, because there always has to be an imbalance in the base chakra in order for there to be an addiction in the first place. So when these two are out of alignment, that's when nicotine is involved and drugs and alcohol. On a physical level, it works with anything with the stomach, colitis, pancreatitis, diabetes, if you're willing to be doing your daily testing. And this is the energy that's recently split in 1781, the solar plexus energy split. So this is what I was talking about in last week's session about going from the fear element, because that's where the adrenal energy comes from, to a more deliberate state. So recognizing that we're no longer in fear, running from lions and tigers and things like that. You know, the stress that we experience now is generally from being placed somewhere that we can't move. So, for example, if something is happening for you on an emotional state in the middle of work and you can't actually take yourself out of that situation, that's where our adrenaline rises and our fear. So the fear is not so much a physical fear now, but it still is a fear and it still needs to be dealt with. So quite often I find imbalances around the solar plexus. So then moving down to the sacral, this is a band that is affecting, especially for women, it's affecting all the reproductive areas, so ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, and also the hip areas as well. This is the place of our life force, the place of our sexual energy as well. And this is where, when I mentioned earlier about the different human designs, this is where the generating energy types get their life force from. There's about 70% of the planet's population are generators, and they are here to do the work to generate, build and create on behalf of the collective. So this is a very strong, powerful energy. And when this is out of alignment, it can cause a lot of frustration. It's also connected with fluids as well. So when we're dehydrated, this can often quite be an area that's out of balance. From a planetary level, it's connected with the moon. And when we're looking at the various elements, this is connected with water. So the sacral is connected with water, and the solar plexus is connected with fire. If you think, quite often, if we have any problems with our digestive system, acid reflux and such like, it's that burning sensation. And then the lungs are connected with air, and the throat is connected with vibration. And when we look at the base chakra, which is what we'll move on to next, we're then talking about earth as the element. So if you now want to place your hands on the base chakra, this is all around the perineum, all around the front. It goes all the way down your legs as well. So if you imagine a line from your tailbone down, it affects all of that area. It also affects the lower part of the bowels on a physical level. it affects your blood, your skin, and also your physical structure as well. And when we look at the age ranges of the chakras, they develop in seven-year cycles. So the base chakra is the first 7 years. So it takes us up to the age of 7, and then we've got 7 to 14 with the sacral chakra, 14 to 21 with the solar plexus, 21 to 28 with the heart energy, 28 to 35 with the throat, 35 to 42 with the brow, and then 42 to 49 with the crown chakra. And within each of those cycles, you have a cycle of 7 as well. And they all have their own frequency. Like I was saying earlier, this affects or determines the colour that's connected to them. So with the base chakra, this is red. And it's the slowest frequency. So when you are looking at any traumas that people have gone through, or anywhere that their energy has been asked to split and go in a different direction to what it's meant to be doing, if it's within the first 7 years, these can quite often be the hardest lessons to unpick, the hardest conditioning to unpick, because it works at such a low frequency. It takes longer, the cycle is longer to work through. So when we're working with Reiki, we have this first point, and then we go down to the thighs, is another point that we can work on. And the next position is the knees. And the final position at the front for the base chakra is on the tops of the feet. So you can either sit cross-legged, depending on how you're seated, or you might want to bring both of your knees up into your chest to hold the tops of your feet. So each of the chakras have a point at the front. It's kind of like a cone when you look at it, and also one on the back, apart from the crown chakra. And the crown chakra is just one single pointing upwards. So now that we've completed Reiki on the front, we're going to turn around. Now, if you've got limited mobility, just be careful in your shoulders. So the next position is going to be at the back of the head. So if you cup your hands, and this is holding the base of the skull, or another way that you can do it as well is holding upwards. So making sure that your hands are still cupped. And then the next position is on top of the shoulders. So if it's difficult to do it in this position, you might want to cross your hands over if that's easier, to rest on your chest. And again, just be careful with mobility. If it's really pushing you, then it's absolutely fine to put the intent. So this is where our intent can start working on our behalf. So you can put the intent in that you're sending energy to that part of the body. So if you want to, you can come back to the heart on the front as opposed to doing the heart on the back and send the energy, but putting in the intent that it's to reach the back chakra. So this is working with the throat and going into the heart area. And then the next one is the heart chakra. Now, when you're working actually with a client, so if, for example, you're working with a friend, a family member, if it's first degree, or a client with the second degree, if you decide to take it down a professional route, then the heart chakra area would be here. So unless you've got extremely bendy arms, this might be quite difficult to get to. So then the next position is the solar plexus, which is slightly further down. And it's almost kind of in that just above your hip area, just as you're starting to get into the shape of your back, into the shape of your hips. And then moving down to the Sacral Chakra. So this is on the hip area. And then moving down to the base chakra. So this is positioned on the buttocks. And as we start coming to the end of this session, start to put in the intent that you're grounding your energy downwards. Some clients can have feelings of not being in the room. So this is your opportunity to bring yourself or anybody that you're working with back into the room and back into their body with the intent that you're connecting to the earth. And drawing your energy down. And then also at the backs of the knees. And then finally the soles of the feet. We've got a twizzly chair. And then just before we finish, we thank the Reiki Masters, past, present and future. In particular, Dr. Ushui, Dr. Hayashi and Madam Takata for being with us today, guiding the energy and bringing us to wellness. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a squeaky one.
Give me a quick thumbs up if you're back in the room. Yeah. Raise your hand if you had an experience that you'd like to share. I'm just going to unmute Calamity.
Hello.
Hello, how was that?
Yeah, you can hear me. I'm quite overwhelmed by the amount of heat that I could feel. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah, amazing.
I got hot. I actually got very, very hot as well.
Yeah, I'm really, I'm in a cold room, so I've just put my jacket back on, but I can feel my face is quite red. It's quite warm. Yeah, amazing. I keep yawning so much. And I wouldn't say I'm particularly tired. I just keep finding myself yawning, like releasing.
Yeah. Well, that's actually another way. I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because that's another way that people tend to release. Each of the chakras have their own way of releasing. And on a body level, when you're releasing, when you're yawning, you're releasing from your throat chakra. So start to think about what it is that you need to communicate. Are you communicating effectively? Is there something, in a different way that you need to communicate? How are you communicating with yourself? So it's all around communication.
Yeah, that's right on the money.
And then, so actually, while we're talking about this, so I was going to go on to talking about experiences of people. So that's for your throat chakra. When it's your third eye, your eyes tend to weep. So it's not crying, but they tend to weep. They can kind of leak. I found clients' eyes kind of leaking. When you're looking at a release from the crown chakra, quite often there's a dizziness, and that's why I like to ask you to put the intent into grounding your energy, because I don't want you to be leaving a room with your head all fuzzy and kind of still out of your crown chakra. So it's about bringing that back down. With your heart energy, that's often coughing or really deep sighs. That can happen. When it's your solar plexus, it's burping. That's my favorite one. When you're releasing from your sacral chakra, quite often you need to go for a wee, go to the toilet. So you might find yourself partway through a session, you think, oh no, really, what, I need to go now, and yeah, you're releasing. So always create a space that, yes, whilst you want it to be your sacred space and for that not to be interrupted, if you have to go, or if you're, if you go on to working with clients, or you've got friends that you're working with, if they need to up and go, you already create that space right at the beginning that, if you need to leave, then you can do, it's not a problem. And then flatulence is the base chakra. So if you start trumping away, or anybody that you're working with does, then again, that's a release from the base chakra. So thank you.
I'm fully released today. Then I've got it all going on. I feel lighter.
Thank you. Anybody else got something that they'd like to share, an experience they'd like to share? Jenny?
No. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can hear you now.
Okay. Just interesting that you focus on the throat, because I think it was more of an intellectual thing. I was more like interested in what you were saying about the throat. Because I think communication is one of the issues. But I also do know from, maybe a lot of you know it, but I'm not a singer, but I've joined in singing groups sometimes. And if you want to start singing, you don't to clear your throat, you yawn. Yeah, and relax your throat.
Clearing all your energetic airways. Yeah. Brilliant.
It also felt most, what was I said? As the most where I was holding myself, where I felt quite secure.
Yeah. It's quite a comforting feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenny. Davina. Hello.
Hi. With mine, I was a bit distracted, so the flow I could feel wasn't constant. But one thing I really noticed when I put my hands on the top of my head, because normally when I do a self-treatment, I never actually do the crown. When I learned, I sort of started here. So that was really interesting for me, because I got quite a sharp pain in my head, and I had a head injury back in at Easter, and it was like something was either being released or reminding me, or something was going on as I did that. And then when I took my hands away, as it wasn't like I was pushing on my head or anything.
Yeah.
And then the same as Calamity, really, the yawning. I don't, I had 8 hours sleep last night, so I don't know why I just like suddenly was yawning loads. But it's really interesting what you said.
Well, as well, if you think about the mind, it carries a lot of information, and quite often we forget that it's to hold information, but to not actually do anything with that. We don't manifest or create anything from our mind. The ideas are there, and then it gets passed to a different part of the body. So if we create, we're creating from our throat energy. If we're manifesting, depending on which type of manifestor you are, you manifest from your emotions and then from your heart. So there's lots of different, functions of the body. And sometimes when we're trying to push and force an idea, then you can have all of this energy, in your head and be not releasing it. So it could be ideas, it could be a physical injury, like you say. So thank you for sharing that, Davina.
Thank you.
Anybody else experience anything? I think Joe's gone to sort the kids out. Did you say that you had something, Helen?
Yeah, I had a lot of heat around the solar plexus, and I was really boiling, but my hands as well, they switched on really quite quickly, and I could, the channel of it was really, really strong. It was less so at the root, but I am quite grounded, so it felt like that wasn't needed as much there. But around the solar plexus, it felt like I actually needed something, and the heat was phenomenal.
Cool, thank you. So you can experience, like I say, you can experience heat, cold. Sometimes you can have emotions that rise up. You can be taken back to incidents. So like you said, Davina, you remembered, you connected that instantly with the injury that you had, back in Easter. So it's not something that's current, but just the sheer fact that you're placing and balancing that crown chakra out where you had the injury prompted you to, to think about that. Past life information can come up. You can see colors. Some people see their own aura. Twitching is quite often experienced as well, to the point that arms can actually lift off the lift off the bed if I'm working with somebody on a bed. I've had people feeling as though they're experiencing themselves come out of their body and remote view their body. And quite often that can happen with deep trauma. So if somebody has gone through extreme trauma, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, in order to be able to deal with it, quite often they have to disassociate from the body and remote view it so that they can deal with it. So you find that quite often people are, you've heard the old phrase, beside themselves. That's what they're meaning. They're not actually right in their body, physically in their body. So it's about being able to remote view the situation as though it's being played on a screen. So it's not actually happening to them, but they're getting an idea and an understanding of what's happened to them. So this can often happen with really deep seated childhood trauma, and the body and the mind have shut down to it and have avoided it until a point that they feel emotionally stable or physically stable to be able to go back and deal with that process. So quite a few different sensations. And then from now, I'd recommend that you have quite a lot of water, because what you want to do is, as well as working on the actual physical body, you've got to remember on the physical, we're working with the adrenal system, we're working with the organs, the deep organs. So it's important to drink water to be able to help flush that through. So that's our self-treatment complete. What I would say is, what time are we on now? 10 past. It's probably a bit late for me to show you a dog treatment. I've got the dog here but maybe we'll do that next week. So next week, what I wanted to look at was, I'm just trying to see what I've got down. So we're going to be looking at the different uses of Reiki, so different ways that you can use it. We're also going to look at group healing, treating other people. So we've done our self-Reiki treatment today. There are just a couple of things that I want to talk about if you're actually working with somebody else, and how to hold heads and, you know, various body parts. And then also about the a bit more detail about the second and master qualifications. And also as well to talk about, I'm going to start doing a support system whereby we do meditation and have some Reiki chat and feedback. So there's question and answers that can be raised. And I probably will be doing that on a Sunday evening. I need to kind of think of times and how that slots in with my schedule. But a couple of people have asked me if I can start doing some Reiki meditation. So I you know, it's along the lines of something that Helen and I were doing up until lockdown. So I'm certainly thinking about bringing that back. So if you have any requests on dates, times, anything like that, throw them in the hat and we'll see what comes up. So, but thank you for joining today. Does anybody want to raise any more questions or about the manual or anything else before we finish? No, all happy with that? Brilliant. Great. Well, we'll see you next week then. Have a great week. Bye.